What's
Mhm.
best for most of us?
For sure.
Don't fight the given. What is there? What can I do with it? What can I do about it? What can I not? I would not have been forced to question certain things about myself.
What I coach a lot on is, okay, you made a mistake or you made a wrong choice. It's all correctable.
When I can be at peace with me, then
Mhm.
home can be anywhere.
Yeah, that's so you. Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. All right. Hello, kind and beautiful human beings. I'm so excited about this episode because it's my first returning guest. You were in series one, the New York sessions. Now you're in series two, the LA sessions. We're going to actually talk about why you're in LA. I'm going to ask you those questions. But Chris Glass is here again. His first episode was amazing. I'll let him introduce himself in a minute and what he does. But I loved when I was thinking about the LA sessions, and I'm going to end up with like 12 or 13 episodes. And you happen to be here now,
Mhm.
like living in LA. And I said, will you do it again? And you were like, yes, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you
Thank
for the first time. Thank you
Mhm.
for being my friend. Thank you for doing it the second time. Tell everybody, remind everybody who you are.
Hi, everybody. I am Chris Glass. I am the son of Joel and Gwen. I'm the grandson of Imogene and Lola Mae and Robert and John. And I call them into the room because I wouldn't be
Yes.
the human that I am without sort of where I come from and the shoulders that I stand on. Professionally, I am the global director for diversity, equity, and inclusion at Soho House, a native son of Atlanta, GA, shout out ATL,
Yay!
but have lived overseas, mostly in Europe, for the last 26, nearly 27 years. So
Yes, you're an expat.
it has definitely had
Yes, yes.
an impact on who I am and how I show up in the world. And yeah, I try to be a kind human being. That's
You
important.
are. And he's a very good friend and a good listener. So let's talk because we were starting to have a conversation before the podcast, and then I was like, "This is so good, we got to turn on the recording." Um, because you were a guest on Jim Fielding and Friends, which was the first series, and I've kind of gone through learning about podcasting and learning about everything I'm working on, and now you're a guest on Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding, and you asked me what Ask for an Answer is, and so I want to explain that to our listeners because I think it's perfect. And then you started to instantly get it and like say all the things I wanted you to say. And so, ask for an answer. It's really come out of my coaching. It's come out of some of the new books I'm working on. It's come out like when I really looked back at my own leadership style and my own leadership philosophies and how I grew and how I led. And it really started with something I used to call the so what test because um, people would, and you know this from the job that you do, people would like come into your office or send you an email or ping you or text you or whatever. And they would say, like, I'll just use an example from my career. Like, we just lost Trolls dolls footage at Walmart, right? Like, and like they've just kind of dropped the bomb, right? And then they would kind of look at you and expect you to be like, okay, call this person, do this. Did we offer a discount? All this kind of stuff. Like they just expect you to problem solve. And what I started to do with people, I would say, so what? Right. And it wasn't that I was being flippant. I was like, okay, you're an adult, you're a professional. Like, what do you think we should do? And what I realized was really what it had morphed to is I had grown up and I think it was what was expected of leaders in the 90s and the early 2000s and even into 2010s was you were recognized and rewarded and promoted for being the answer guy. Like, I got it. I got it. Like, it was literally like, got it. Like, I was juggling the balls. I had the plate spinning, but I got it. And what I realized was I wasn't developing my team and I wasn't developing myself. And so ask for an answer is really when things happen to you professionally, when things happen to you in your personal life, when things happen kind of in the world, instead of just instantly going into caretaker mode, problem solver mode, solution provider mode, it's a discipline that I work with my coaching clients and some of the people I advise to step back and say, whoa, wait a minute, I'm going to ask for an answer. Like, what am I supposed to learn from this situation? And I'm going to try and encourage the room or the collective or the team to develop the answer. I'm not going to always be the one to provide the answers. It doesn't mean as a leader, I understood the buck stopped with me for sure. But I think it's a huge part of what we were just talking about is like it's being honest and being vulnerable of like, I don't have all the answers. I trust you. Let's talk about possible solutions. So that's really what Ask for an Answer is. And these episodes, it's been interesting when I've curated the guest list for this round. Um, we've touched on it quite a bit. And it's different things. I mean, like I said, it can be used professionally, it can be used personally, but it's more of it's an attitude, it's an energy, but there's also a mechanism to it of like, wait a minute, like there's a conscious decision in my head before I just jump into Jim solution provider, caretaker, I'm going to step back and ask for an answer.
I think what's so important, but also useful about all that is, and you've touched on this, number one,
Yeah.
recognizing that we don't always have all the
Mm-mm,
answers.
mm-mm.
And in fact, especially when you look at, inclusion work, we are the answer will be better for the varied perspectives that have informed it.
Mhm.
Two heads are better than one is a phrase that you use as well. I think back to a couple of situations. One, trying to navigate something that was tricky and clunky and difficult, and I wanted to sort of come out with my solution,
Mhm.
and I realized from personal experiences and different things. Wait, let me check what you actually need from me.
Mm.
So one of my questions that I often ask in the beginning of any conversation is, how can I be of service?
Mm.
To then be clear that the solution that I eventually might come with, whether that's through a question and answer process or whatever, is tethered to what you actually need from me. And I do find that it's grounding and centering and helpful for both folks in the conversation or both entities in the conversation, to then genuinely be solution oriented. Um, and then in addition to that, I think acknowledging that I won't always have the answers.
Mhm.
And that situation is an opportunity for me to learn potentially new answers and
Mhm.
solutions. But what I value about this perspective again of asking for an answer is that it reminds me, at least, and hopefully other folks can identify with this, is that none of us are none of us have figured it all out.
Mhm.
I recall being in a management team meeting and a conversation about um, how we should perform, how we should act, how we should be as leaders. And I raised my hand slightly sheepishly, and then sort of really push it up to say, "Wait a minute, I'm not going to be great every day. I'm
Yeah.
not going to feel strong and powerful and clued in
Mhm.
and joyful and all the things that it takes to
Mhm.
lead
Mhm.
effectively, quite frankly.
Mhm.
I am also human. And I think we do ourselves as leaders a disservice by insisting that we become, that we're perfect.
Yeah, superheroes.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
we do our teams and the people that we lead a
for sure.
disservice by not allowing for humanity and all that to come into the scope.
No, I knew you would understand. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, you stunt your own development and you stunt the development of your team.
Exactly.
It's you create instead of creating an environment where people can thrive and grow, you actually are making them smaller. You're actually and I think um yeah, I think when I kind of hit on this, I've started to write about it a little bit on LinkedIn. I've started putting in my newsletter. Like I think it's an interesting. It's just and I've coached a lot on it, and that's why I really was like, I've got to start writing this down. And I don't want to say systemize it because that kind of like makes it sound like it's very formulaic. It's not formulaic. I think it's situational, and but it kind of moves you as a leader from being, to your point, like performative and like, I got it, to, hey, I'm experienced, I'm smart, I'm passionate, I'm ambitious. I don't have it every day and I don't have the solution all the time. But hey, let's sit down virtually, physically. It works in hybrid environments, it works with people that are remote. It can work over a Zoom, it can work in person. Um, let's have that discussion.
And I think what you're touching on is, this is a tool. It's a
It's
resource
a
in your
tool.
toolbox.
It is.
To be able to. I also think, as you were saying that, how are we setting up future leaders? As a leader, how am I setting up folks that will come after
Yes.
me, by pretending that I always have the answer, or
Yeah.
or going into rooms not allowing for that
Yeah.
dialogue.
Yeah. It's not, you're not, I don't think, again, there's people that will fundamentally disagree with me. Um, I don't think it's good leadership. And there's a lot of people that have had very successful careers and written books and everything else by being the answer guy,
Mm.
by being, and maybe it's because of the space that you work in. I love the fact that he still gets to say he works in DEI. I think he's one of the only people in the world that still introduces
There's a
himself.
handful of us.
Yeah, saying that he does DEI. But I think maybe it's because I always worked in creative environments and in creative industries. That yeah, I don't know. I have to think about that. I have to think about if it's applicable in all industries or not, because I'll get asked that. But I think in the creative industries or in service-oriented industries, hospitality, retail, travel, and leisure, I think it's really applicable.
I think it also, I think it comes back to your leadership philosophy.
Hmm.
And are you looking to be a command and control type of leader? And
Yeah, that's such a great question.
are you going to excel in that environment? And is that environment going to give you what you're looking for?
Yeah,
And there will be other environments
that's
where
the
that
that's the
completely
right
doesn't work.
question.
And again, I think, that's the great thing about the notion of a toolbox is
Hmm.
to go do a plumbing job. There's certain tools that
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah, yeah.
use
There's some ways
to
you
go
have to
do
do it.
an
Yeah,
electricity job,
rewire
other
an
things.
electrical
There
box,
you
right?
go.
Exactly.
There are basics that are going to work for both. I probably will need a screwdriver to do both
Yes, yes,
things.
yes, yes, yes.
And for me, I think, more than anything, this is also how I want to show up in the world as a human. This is
Yeah,
not just about my leadership; it's about my humanity.
it is, and I think also it's in my book I talk about selfish not being a bad word, but I think it's also very selfish because it's the environment I want to work in.
Mm, mm,
Like, I mean, I'm trying to create safe, physically, psychologically safe spaces, but it's also like an environment I want to work in because I don't want to be. I love the command and control, Chris, because I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to be like, I earned the big office and the big title, and I'm just going to issue emails. I'm going to issue edicts, and you're going to go out and execute. I didn't want executors. I didn't want, um, I didn't want everybody to just be yes people and just, you know. And it's funny because as I say it out loud, I think part of the situation we have, I'm not going to get political, but I'm part of the situation in the way our government is running right now is we have a very command and control leader, um, and command and control leaders underneath the command and control leader
mhm.
that are literally just issuing edicts. And I don't think that they're listening to their teams. They're not listening to people that have experience or wisdom or even maybe have a different point of view. It doesn't mean that ultimately they're not going to go the direction the leader wants to go, but just to take the moment to listen and say, there might be a different way to approach this.
I think, to the example that you're
Yeah.
giving, at the end of the day, I think, and this is my philosophy, I'm a better leader
Mm,
because I have those perspectives. The
yes.
decision that I make, or that we then sort of collectively make,
Hmm.
is better informed because we
It
have
is.
various
It is.
options that inform why we're going to do what we do in the end.
Yes.
We've trialed different ideas. We've
Yes.
we've gone down the path to say, if we do this, is this going to net what it is that we're looking to get out of it in the end? And I think, for me, that's the other big takeaway from this concept is, looking at the government in the U.S. and many other places
Yeah.
right now. They have decided that they know what's best.
Hmm.
And I think what's unfortunate about that is that they're not the only ones with a stake in this
Hmm.
game. There are other folks that have
Hmm.
have different needs and desires and expectations.
And different histories and different, yeah, I mean, everything.
And this government will exist for a certain period of time, but the effects of what they're doing will
Hmm.
be lasting. In any structure, in any
Hmm.
sort of community, in any group, there will be different needs and expectations. But the way that I was raised, and what I
Yes.
hold very near and dear, is what's
Hmm.
best for most of us, and certainly the
Hmm.
least amongst us. Those of us who have the least means and least sort of
Hmm.
possibilities. How can we make sure that these decisions are in support of the greatest good possible, and not just an individual and their singular needs and
Yes,
expectations. Um,
for sure.
yeah, and
For
again, for
sure.
me, that's what takes it back to the humanity of it all and how we can
Mhm.
apply these principles. Yes, in a work situation, but also sitting with my family and navigating how we're making the best choice for my mother
Yeah,
or
for aging parents.
yeah,
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 hallelujah. I
yeah.
mean, I mean, okay, so let's talk about because we kind of glossed over it, and you said maybe you're one a handful. I mean, here we are. I mean, we're recording in December 2025. I know what kind of year it's been, and I've been so lucky because you've been less expatty this year. Like I've seen you more this year because you've been more in the States. But it's been a tough year in the DEI space. Like, so kudos to Soho House that they've supported you and you still have that title. But what have been your biggest learnings in that space this year? I mean, I know we could do hours on this, but um, because you still have that title, and many people don't have that title. Many people lost that title, lost jobs. Departments were closed down, divisions within HR were closed down, and yet you're still there. I mean, what's been the learnings there?
It's interesting the context of the podcast. One of my
Yeah.
biggest takeaways from this year, it references a quote from Zora Neale Hurston,
Mm.
the great
Yeah, she's
author, where
amazing,
she
yeah.
says, "Some years ask questions,"
Mm,
and that has been my
mm,
my tome for this year.
mm,
Um, I'm not coming out of this year necessarily with a lot of answers, but I'm definitely coming out with questions that will
mhm,
inform the answers that I'm able to provide in the years to come. I think that the biggest takeaway for me in terms of the shift in diversity, equity, and inclusion in that entire space is the need for agility. The pivot on the pivot, the pivot on the pivot on the pivot. And I've learned that I can't be none. I think it is dangerous for us to be rigid.
mhm.
And I think of
Dogmatic
a
for
yeah,
sure, you
I
can't
think of
be.
a tree roots that go very, very deep, but above the surface, it needs to be able to bend in the wind.
Flex.
Because the wind will always come, and
That's
sometimes those winds
brilliant,
will be more
yeah.
aggressive and other times less. But my ability to lean into and lean back from what's coming at
Mhm,
me is what's going to allow me staying power, I think, in the end. And that I think can
mhm,
apply to so many different industries and so on. But learning to sort of take the given, it's something I learned from a colleague. Don't fight the given.
mhm,
What is there, and what can I do with it? What can I do about it? What can I not? And I think the energy that came with diversity, equity, and inclusion work in 2020, what that was in response to and born out of. I understand why people became slightly dogmatic and even entitled in some cases about why this was the right thing to do.
mhm.
But if you're not if you're not in the room, no matter how right this is, you're not
Mhm.
going to be able to do the work.
No, that's for sure.
And so finding ways to really partner with people to say we don't see eye to eye on this necessarily.
Mhm,
What can we agree on? And with what we agree on, how can I bring in the awareness and the influence that I have to make these things continue to move forward, and leave things by the wayside that we're not going to be able to make move forward.
no, for sure.
So it's responding to sometimes day by day, responding to what's happening,
Mhm,
and saying what can I do versus what I can't do,
mhm,
and thinking sort of bigger picture. How can I continue to drive an idea forward that I personally really believe in, but also I understand the value that the idea can have for the bigger picture, for the collective,
mhm.
for humanity, again, for the business, and to try and be solution oriented.
Like, on a day-to-day level, like, on a practical level, the stuff that you're doing and the way that you're working, has it changed dramatically this year, or does it feel like what you were doing last year?
It is a progression of what I was doing last year, and for that matter, what I was doing the year before.
Yeah.
I have a smaller team than I used to have, so that requires a pivot. Just literally, I can't do as much
Yeah.
or we can't do as much as we could, given that. Um, the openness of the world in relation to some of this work has shifted. So where certain things were really easy 2 years ago, a year ago, they're less easy now. Just
Mhm,
folks' minds and hearts are not as open as they used to be.
mhm,
Um, there are also competing priorities. That's something I talk about a lot. which is not to say that this doesn't matter, but that matters a lot more, and that matters a lot more, and
Mhm.
that matters a lot more. Um, so yeah, I've learned to work in collaboration with people that aren't employees, but really support these notions that we believe in, and they can. I call them foot soldiers. They can be active in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
local
yeah.
communities and continue to drive these principles forward. I've become more specific about what the principles and pillars are,
Mm,
so that it's easier to communicate those to multiple people and
it's
for people to
fascinating.
sort of jump on board and feel like they can drive it forward in their own way. A big thing that we'll look at for next year that started this year but will continue is collaboration. What other organizations are doing similar work that continue to believe in this work as well,
Mhm.
that we can share resources with. I stand there by myself. There's only so much I'm going to get done. But if we stand there as tens and tens of thousands, I think clearly the impact is greater, but the ability for each of us as individuals to stay in the game for
Mhm.
longer and do the work, I think, is increased as well. So it's for me, it's about again taking what's there and how can I be as smart as possible about preserving what we've created in the past and set it up so that we can continue to do this work in the future in a way that's meaningful.
That's huge. Because you have global remit, I mean, do you again, I haven't worked outside the USA in a while, so is it different by country? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
or are you kinda dealing with the same things in the UK? I mean, your company's based in the UK,
yeah.
but you're a global company, but, like, is it different?
This year in particular has been a huge focus on the US, just given what's
Yes,
happening here in the
which is why you're
space of
spending more
diversity.
time here,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think there are two pieces to answer that question. There are things that I've tried to distill certain things that I think are human, no matter where
Mhm.
you are. We all want to be seen. Every
Yes,
human wants to be seen and
yes.
acknowledged for the human that they
Yeah,
are.
there's no language barrier there, right.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that shows up in different ways based on what your identity is and what you've
Mhm.
lacked and what you've had more of. But we all want to be seen. And eventually, beyond being seen, we want to know that we matter.
Mhm.
Um, and then specifically, there are things in certain countries that are against the law that you can't ask, and other things
Yeah.
you have to be really careful about how you
Yeah,
ask
different
it.
laws, different rules.
So and then there are cultural nuances to consider. There are places in the world where um, we're even sort of identifying what makes someone different is really poo poo. It's not something that culture
Mhm.
really wants to lean into, and so that requires openness, but also sophistication,
Mm.
and quite frankly, an awareness that just because this idea and this system, which is, to be fair, very rooted in sort of the global West,
Mhm.
even the language that we use about all of this is
Mhm.
very Anglo-Saxon language. I also want to be really intentional about not coming in as a missionary and enforcing
Yes,
these
yes.
ideals and ideas on a culture and a community that, number one, aren't looking for it, but number
Mhm.
two, are thriving in their own way. Maybe there's something I can learn from you about the ways that you're doing things. So
Mhm.
I think for me, it's also important for any of us that do this work to really own the fact that it's not a one size fits
That's
all.
all. That's so smart.
Yeah,
That's so smart. Is this the most time you spent in the US in a long time?
in over 20 years.
Yeah. So, and I haven't even asked you this personally, but so I'm going to ask on the
Mhm.
podcast. What surprised you? I mean, forgetting about politics and all that,
Mhm.
what did you miss anything about the US? And then, like, what surprised you about that? Because I was thinking about that, like, because you've spent quite a bit of time here. I mean, over half the year, right? Has probably
Yeah,
been
yeah.
in the US.
This is one of the things that I say
Hmm.
to friends, but even for myself as I've contemplated that
Yeah.
question because I have to.
Yeah.
Um, I've changed in the time that I've been away from the U.S.
Yeah.
The U.S. has changed in the time that I've been away from the
Hmm.
U.S. And what is not only what's important to me, but what I'm aware of
Yeah. What you
has
see.
shifted. Exactly.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I've come back with a perspective that um, I'm grateful that I have this global perspective, but it creates confusion sometimes because my expectations are that bigger thing, and that
Hmm.
doesn't always fit in certain spaces
Hmm.
here. And so learning to sort of manage my expectations because of that. I'm also aware that I left the U.S. at a time where there was political sort of concern, but the U.S. was solid in its sort of domination as a world power, and
Hmm.
there are
Superpower,
spaces,
yeah.
exactly, there are spaces where people question that today, and
Hmm.
adjusting to that, sort of thinking about my own Americanism,
Hmm.
but also looking at the space that this country holds in the world right now, and how other cultures are sort of looking to us,
Hmm.
um, some still with praise, but some with concern and
For
pause.
sure.
I take all of that and sort of lump it together to try and just be humbled by it and think, what can I learn from this environment today? Taking everything
Hmm.
that I've learned in the collection of my life's situations. What is this here to teach me today?
Hmm.
And there's a reason, whether it's super apparent to me or not, why I'm here right now.
Ask for an
There
answer.
you go.
Yeah, yeah, for
What can I take
sure.
from this, and how can it be part of how I continue to grow, and hopefully, I'll be able to take this chapter of my life and use it in a way that is supportive to the next
Mhm.
chapter in my life.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, it is not obvious to me. When
Mm.
I walk out the door, sometimes I'm a foreigner in my own country in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, when you probably first started living the expat life, you were like the foreigner that way, but because then you were there for so long, you assimilated. I mean, where was the longest you lived? Berlin?
Berlin, yeah.
Okay.
Um, because I'm a native American,
Yeah.
native
Yeah.
English speaker. A lot of my friends have also had to adjust to the fact. Oh, wait, you're a foreigner here.
Yeah.
Just because I speak the language and
Yeah.
and show up in certain ways that are familiar,
Yeah.
culturally, there are other things in there that affect not only how I behave, but quite frankly, how I think and how I
Yes.
how I
Yes.
observe and judge
Yes.
things.
Yes.
And that again, that is a shock to them, but it's a shock to me.
No, I get it on a really small scale because I think when I studied overseas in college and I lived in Copenhagen, for an academic year basically, and I lived with a Danish family who never spoke English to me. Like you do assimilate. You assimilate with the language, you assimilate culture. Like you and I have talked about it. I mean, I came home from Denmark. I would call myself borderline conversationally fluent
Mhm.
because they never, from the time they picked me up in the airport until the time they dropped me off again, and I still write and stuff with them, and we write in Danish and stuff. It's bad. I have to use Google Translate now. Sorry, Danish family, um, but uh, I came back different just from that. Like I came back and you start to think differently. You start to see it with different eyes. And then because I was young, I mean, I turned 21 over there. And then you go right back into a college campus where they knew you when you were a freshman and sophomore, but then they kind of missed the junior year. And then all of a sudden you're a senior year there. And their expectations were you were the same. And you're not. You're absolutely not. I was so changed. So I can't imagine with the number of years you did. How many years was Berlin total?
Berlin specifically is 16, 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Ich bin Berliner.
Du,
You
das kann auch gut sein. It's funny. I think about we're in a season of a lot of things, but Wicked having just premiered the second
Yeah.
half, and there's a that song for good,
Yeah.
change for good, and that lyric, who can say if I've been changed for the
The
better?
better. Yeah.
But I've definitely been changed for good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who I am, to your point, coming back to
Yeah.
this country.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to sit in judgment of the people that I'm surrounded by and say that I'm better, but I'm definitely changed.
Mhm.
And I think that change is good in that it
Mhm.
has opened spaces in my brain and my heart, quite frankly,
Mhm.
that have allowed me to
That's
hold
interesting.
other possibilities and other
Mhm.
perspectives, and to know that other possibilities and perspectives, to be able to hold those, is also very
Mhm.
important. And had I stayed in the same community and culture that I'd always known,
Mhm.
I would not have been forced to question certain things about myself,
Mhm.
to test certain theories that I had about myself,
Mhm.
to examine language, the way that other cultures speak and what that
Mhm.
means when they say it. I just had this last night
Mhm.
at dinner. The server came to the table, a place I've never been to before, have never seen this person, and the server said, "Hey, friend." And I said to the person I was having dinner with, I said, "But you're not
Yeah,
they're
that's
not my
weird,
friend."
right?
Because in Germany in particular, that word means something really
Yeah,
specific.
right.
And having been taken out of America, where that is used a bit more loosely sometimes,
Mhm.
perhaps,
Mhm.
I learned a new definition for it. And once again, now
Mhm.
coming back and hearing the way that it's used and what I sort of have
Mhm.
accumulated in time about what it should mean, there's a tension that happens.
There is.
And so all that to say, I'm so grateful for the experience, and I'm also grateful for how that experience informs what I do today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting what you're saying about even like that kind of colloquialism last night, because I think for me, having spent 20 years living in
Mhm.
LA and then to move to Atlanta, it's so funny now. You're an Atlanta native. Now I've moved to Atlanta. Just the regional differences in language. I mean, we're all speaking English, but the dialects and the slang and the sounds and the what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. There's like an LA thing that's very different. There's a lot about LA and Atlanta that I can see similarities in, and you can see the connections in the film industry and the media industry and in the music industry. You see a lot of LA Atlanta connections, but there's also it's a different world.
Mm.
Like and I mean, I think I spent the first 2 years in Atlanta. I loved Atlanta. I still love Atlanta, but I think I was definitely a fish out of water those
Mm.
first 2 years, and, I just was kind of lost. I was, like, geographically lost because it's such a hard city to navigate
Mm.
because it's not laid out in a grid, and everything's called Peachtree, and, like, I didn't really know where I was going. I was, like, GPS dependent. Um, but also just I didn't know some of the local customs. I didn't know some of the local language. I didn't know some of the local colloquialisms. I didn't know the kind of the standards and ethics and mores and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, so I don't think I offended anybody, but I probably it was obvious I wasn't from there.
Mm.
Where I think now, I'm coming up on my fifth year. Um, no one's going to mistake me for an Atlanta native, but I think I'm more Atlanta now. And
Mm.
now it's funny because landing here, I'm a visitor in LA,
Mhm.
where this was home for so many
Mm.
years. Landing in LAX meant home.
Mm.
Landing in LAX now means I'm here for work, or I'm here for, for fun, or I'm here to visit friends. Um, it is different. I mean, it's like that space, that sense of space. And even though the world is smaller because of technology and travel and all that stuff, it is so different. It's big. It's big.
As you were saying that, I'm conscious as well. The things that you were learning about Atlanta and what it means to live there and sort of
Mhm.
navigate it. Part of what it does is it disrupts whatever you knew before,
Yeah.
forces you to question that.
Yeah.
And what I think what one then holds on to after answering those
Uh-huh.
questions is hard won. It's
Yeah.
you
Yeah, yeah,
fought to
yeah.
say no. I still believe this and I still think this and this
Yeah.
is who I am. And so then as you come back to visit LA with sort of that journey,
Yeah.
how you show up here today, with that new set of things that you're
Yeah,
carrying,
yeah.
feels more, I think, feels true. You hold
Yeah.
harder to it because it's been tested. Um,
And my Angelino friends, I've spent a lot of time with some amazing Angelino friends, and they keep asking me, "Do you miss it?" Right? Like, do you miss it? Would you ever come back? And you know me, I never say never because I'm a firm believer in fate and things happen for a reason. Um, and I say to them, I don't. I miss you. Like I miss people. I miss friends. There's things I miss about it. I realized too, you and I went out to dinner already this week, and the food is just so different, right? Because I'm like, I realized I was telling my friends last night, and the friends I was with last night, I said I love them to death and they're super healthy and everything else. But I'm like, And I was telling him, I'm like, I eat a lot of wings now, right? I eat a lot of wings.
ATL.
And I didn't know wings came in like 47 flavors, right? And like, I had to actually specify if I wanted them baked or fried or crispy or all that. I'm like, I was a wing, I was a wing. I was like, wings and greens and cornbread and grits. Like, I'm like, I like Southern food, but it is so different, you know? And of course, we still eat Italian and we eat Japanese and all that kind of stuff. But also, we're not on a coast in Atlanta, right? We're here, it was like so much about seafood and so much. And it's still really, really good in Atlanta. Atlanta's going to kill me for this, but it's different.
Yeah.
It's just different. I mean, and I'm like, yeah, but, yeah, and it's not even passing judgment on like which one I like better. I think I'm like you. I think part of the reason you and I are friends and have bonded is we're a little bit of chameleons too. Like I like that's because people say, "Oh, you're home." That's the other thing they've been saying to me, and I'm like, "No, home is Atlanta because home is where Joe is. Home is where my dogs are. Like I make home where home is. Like I'm a nester, and so if you tell me, okay, Jim, you're going to have to move again, you know, for whatever reason, for a job or Joe's job or whatever, I'll be okay because I think I have enough of that gypsy in me where I have friends that I love from college who've like lived in the same house for 25 years, right? And I also think this is so bad to say, but I think it's a little bit of a gay straight thing. It's like, I love my houses and I love decorating the house and stuff. I didn't birth children there and have like 50, 20 Christmases and stuff. Like I don't have those memories so built into the houses. If I had 3 or 4 kids and raised my kids in the house, and this is, and you have the little marks on the wall of when they grew, and that's where they went to school, and that's where we did Christmas, and that's where we did birthday. I think I might. It's not that I'm callous, but I almost look at the house as like an enabler for the home, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because the home is the people you surround yourself with and the community and like, my dogs are a big part of my life. But yeah, because people say that to me and I'm like, no, I don't, this isn't home.
I had to adjust my perspective around home years ago.
Yeah.
Because yes, I moved to another country, but also even within that, I was traveling so much. So the home that I had, it's not, I wasn't coming to sleep there every night.
Yeah.
And for me, home is a series of experiences. It's not 4 walls. It's not a geography.
100%.
It's the experiences and the memories that we take from having existed in a space or come back, return to space and test it and all of that. But my hope for myself, certainly, and for others that want to lean into this, is that home is it's a state of mind that when I can be at peace with me, then home can be anywhere.
Yeah, that's so huge.
And that is what I aspire to. Not only because life and my job
that's like a mic drop moment. People listening, like,
there we go.
We're going to play that over and over again.
But no, some of us, I don't want to stand in judgment of people that have chosen to never to stay in the same home for years.
Sure.
I appreciate that, but I would encourage them to question what parts of you have not expanded because you've had that safety.
Yes.
And what might you be prepared to test for yourself?
Yes.
But certainly for those of us that have
huge.
had to sort of test that and reconcile it and so on. Again, for me, what keeps coming back is it's not even about the art that I hang on the wall, or it is really about sort of the experiences that I had and how those shape who I am as a human, and how can I take that with me anywhere I go.
100%. Yeah, and I have too much stuff. You and I have talked about that. Like I'm a stuff person and I'm definitely like an art person and stuff. But it is interesting because I can go through my house and look at the art and I know where I bought that piece of art. Like I know the story of each piece of the art. And so I have an art collection that's been gathered over the years from where I lived or internationally. And it's not like this amazing, I mean, a lot of the art was street art, right? That I saw a street artist I liked or a flea market or whatever. But I do know, like people say, oh my God, your art's so good. But I'm like, it's the stories of the art.
I just wanted to say, the pieces are fantastic.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is
stories.
Your stories about how you acquired it
and the
where
story
you
of
went.
that artist.
Exactly. The person that created it and what they wanted to do. And quite frankly, when the time comes that you're no longer here and that work is
Mhm.
wherever it is, what happens to it after that? This sounds very la 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 la, but for me, it is all about the process or the journey.
Yeah.
Once the piece is finished for the
Okay,
time
you're
period
gonna
that's
make me
finished.
this could make me cry, but I haven't told a lot of people this. I mean, Joe knows. I listen, it's not that I'm being morbid. It's not that I'm like feeling my mortality, but I know that there's a point that I'm gonna be gone. So with my art, because you'll be part of it, Chris, when I know we're coming, we're coming around the
Coming around the
mountain. Yeah,
mountain.
coming around the mountain. I I want to be with it enough to invite people to wherever I am and say, I want you to take a piece of art. I want you, which piece of art speaks to you? Because I want to know where it's going, to your point. This is a control freak in me. I'm freely owning. This is a type A, anal retentive Aries speaking. But a woman that I met in northern Michigan who owned a gallery who was sick, and I knew she was sick and she was getting frail, and she had an amazing, not only did she have an amazing gallery, she had an amazing personal art collection. And I had actually bought a lot of stuff with her. And she's the one that gave me that idea. And she said, I've known for a year she had cancer and she knew she was terminal. And she said, I've done it with relatives, I've done it with friends, and that's giving me peace.
Mm.
Like I'm going into my next chapter. She was very beautiful about it. But I want to do that too. Because to your point, I think that piece of art has a journey after me. And it's not a good enough collection that's going to go on the Sotheby's auction block, right? Like I don't want that. It wouldn't qualify for that anyway, but I want to know where the pieces go.
Yeah.
I want to be with it enough to know where the pieces go.
Mm.
So just know you'll be picking someday.
Noted. And now it's
You'll be
saved
on the
on
list.
tape.
Yes, I've committed to it. By the way, executor of my will, Chris Glass is on the art list. Okay, so I want to go back. I'm conscious of our time, but I want to go back to the For Good thing you were talking about. Did you see the second movie?
I did, yeah.
Which one did you like better, second or first?
I really try not to compare.
All right.
That's another takeaway from this year. Good question. I think I probably enjoyed the first one more because it was new for
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
now that
Yeah, you had a different expectation.
Yeah.
I cried a lot in the second one.
I didn't. I was a bit truthfully, I was distracted by a couple of the two new songs. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't
I know, because you're a classicist.
Yeah.
No, but I cried more, but it's interesting, like the For Good when you were saying, and like the lines you pulled out. I just thought that scene, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, that I'm not giving a spoiler, obviously, the song, it's called Wicked for Good. I mean, the song For Good is a big part of the second movie. But I got super emotional in that part because I hang up on like the first, I believe people come into our lives for a reason, right? And I think what's amazing, even sitting here and talking to you, like we've only known each other 2 years. I mean, 2 years. It's crazy. And I think about the conversations that we've had and how your life has changed in 2 years, how my life has changed in 2 years. And that we literally met because of the book. I mean, we met because you actually were gracious enough to host an event in Atlanta for Soho House, and you had read the book. I always say this, like there was a lot of people, and I thank all of you that interviewed me on the journey, but Chris Glass read that book because you got stuff out of the book that other people hadn't found before. You got your Oprah moment. I always told you that, like you made me cry. But I just think, my God, like when you think about For Good, like I can't imagine my life now without you in it. Like it's crazy. No, like you came for a reason. And then you were from the ATL.
Yeah.
And you tried to teach me the ATL, even though you hadn't been there for a long time.
Exactly.
Even though you hadn't been there for a long time, you did try to teach me the ATL. Like and so I selfishly, even though I know you're in the US because there's a lot of work to do in the US, like I also think that was meant to be in a weird way.
I
Because
think
I thought it could have easily been we did that Atlanta
for
event,
sure, for
we
sure.
stayed in touch, and I would have never seen you
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Easily could have been that.
I I mean, you know this, but there was a time in my life where I was a singer. That song is a song that I've sung over and over again over the
Mm.
years because, and as a singer, I'm very attached to lyric.
Mhm.
And the journey, the story that song
Song
tells,
tells, yeah.
is a great sort of, yeah. For me, it's a key aspect of understanding our humanity. And you start
Yeah,
it with, people come into our lives for
for
a
a
reason.
reason.
And the song, interesting enough, the song doesn't doesn't the song gives questions and
It
answers.
does.
So bringing it back to the podcast, but what
It does.
there's that one moment where the two ladies acknowledge that maybe I made a mistake, maybe I didn't.
Uh-huh.
We'll figure out in time sort of
Uh-huh.
whether it was right or wrong. But no matter what, things have been changed.
Yeah.
And change is a very one of the very few things that is inevitable. But I think if we can, I was
Yeah.
asked once to talk about my greatest failure,
Yeah.
and I said I don't subscribe to the notion of failure.
Mm-mm.
Everything is sent for me to learn. And the failure will be when I refuse to learn the lesson I was intended
Yeah,
to learn from that
Chris,
situation.
I love that. Again, please, mic drop moment, people. Please write this down. Did I make mistakes? Yes, absolutely. Did fate hand me a decision to make, and sometimes I went down the wrong road? Absolutely. But it was not a failure. Like it wasn't a failure. It was a lesson I was supposed to learn. And I think, yeah, I mean, you and I think that's another reason why you and I bonded is because we've never. I was talking about that with someone earlier. It's interesting as I look over the last couple days of doing this podcast is you and I we're not victims. We're
Mm,
never victims, and we're not. And I struggle with people who play the victim card, right? I struggle with people who have that victim mentality because I'm like, no, no, you're not a victim. We
mm,
are. I believe in fate, and I believe that things happen for a reason. But I also believe enough in fate that you're offered opportunities like an A, a B, and a C,
mm,
and like you choose. Okay, I'm going to try A, and sometimes A wasn't the right
mm,
choice. Maybe B was the right choice, but I don't. It's funny being married to a doctor now. Like I always used to say in my career, your career is the same way. If something messes up at work, nobody dies.
mm,
And I used to say that all the time because I was in media and retail entertainment. I don't really say it as much anymore because now I'm married to a doctor. If he does mess up, people don't die. I swear. He's an amazing doctor. But he does deal with life and death situations. Like he deals with important decisions in the emergency room and has the mentality for that and the training for that and the experience for that. Um, what I coach a lot on, which again is, I think, ask for an answer is okay, you made a mistake or you made a wrong choice. It's all correctable. It
mm.
is correctable. It's like, what did you learn?
That
What
that.
did you learn? And I look at myself in the mirror and I will even say, I will literally say out loud to myself, okay, that was a mistake or that was dumb or that wasn't your wisest move. Ask for the answer. What did you learn? Let's not try to do it again.
How is this literally
Yes.
leading me to where I needed to
Yes.
go?
Yes.
I also don't want to be a victim. I
Yeah.
recognize that those lessons are sometimes hard to learn. They're
Yes.
confusing to get the answer that we're
Yes.
looking for. I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But I absolutely trust, and I'll pause.
Yeah.
It's not even absolute. I trust,
Yeah.
and at moments that is called into question. But the
Uh-huh.
biggest picture is that I trust. Again, not only am I going to get through this, whatever it
Uh-huh.
is, but this is here for me to learn
It
from.
is. It
And not
is.
only will I be better for having learned it,
Mhm.
but the ways that I hopefully will then be able to support other people with that thing that I've
Yeah, yeah,
learned.
yeah. And I think it has a lot of different words, to be honest, like faith, trust, higher power, fate, confidence. Like to me, that's confidence. Like, because I think that is the good thing that comes with age is that wisdom and that experience. Because the other thing that you realize, and I'm older than you are, is things are very cyclical.
Mm,
And I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when this happened 10 years ago." Like, "Oh, wait a minute. How did I handle that situation? What did we learn from that?
mm, mm,
How am I going to do this
mm.
one differently?" And you really do realize and now there's a lot of things going on in the world. I mean, I think the pace of change and the stuff that we've dealt with, we could do a whole nother podcast on that this year has been amazing. Like the political changes, the socioeconomic changes, the tech and AI changes, all that stuff. So I do think there's a lot of new stimuli and new input this year that I can't fall back on the past. But there's also a lot of things I've done in my past where I'm like, oh, yeah, you remember. And you did that really well last time, or
Mhm.
you didn't do that really well
Mhm.
the last time. Let's not do that again. All right. Well, thanks for doing it. Look at you. A two-time guest
Yay!
of Jim Fielding and Friends Ask for an Answer. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being my friend, but also thank you for the work you do because you are making a difference. You know that.
Thank you for appreciating it. And
Yeah.
to all the other folks out there that do this work in big or small ways, to your point, I appreciate them as well. I think it's work that it's human work and it's work that we all need to do. So thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.